Martin Luther King Jr. Day. I want us to look at his letter from the Birmingham Jail. And those on YouTube, we're going to post the links and you all can go back to it. So, funnily enough, King's letter was penned in 1963, so that was 101 years after Hugo's letter, and 60 years ago, this April 14th, I believe. Okay, so if you're under 70, which is a whole lot of us, you might not remember all the details around that, but in a nutshell, King, of course, was well into his nonviolent action at this point in the civil rights movement for race relations and other places of full equality in society. And Birmingham, Alabama was known to be the most segregated city in the South. And they'd been planning this action for a long, long time, waiting for the right moment. And finally, after Easter in '63, decided, everyone's promised there's going to be changes. We don't see anything happening. So they took to the streets. And it was illegal to protest or some such things. So he ends up in jail for 8 days and writes this letter that is perhaps the most famous letter of all time. And what he says, he apologizes in the letter for writing such a long letter because he says, you know, what else though? You know, were I at home in my comfortable chair at my desk, it would have been shorter. But for those who are in jail, what else do we have to do but write long letters, think long thoughts, and pray long prayers? I want you to think of that obviously literally, but mostly metaphorically. That's perhaps how you sustain yourself when you're living in a place of oppression. Long prayers, long letters. So, of course, the letter was spurred by these 8 clergy from Alabama. And if you read their letter, which you can find quite easily, it's really compelling. It is beautifully written. Like these white dudes from Alabama were progressive church leaders. They were upheld in their communities. These weren't like radicals. These weren't the Christian right of America today. And they say stuff like, the time's not right. Follow the proper processes. Do you really think your whole nonviolent thing is as nonviolent as you think it is? And so I just want us to consider that these guys who wrote the letter are kind of like a whole lot of us might be. They're just saying, you know what, don't rock the boat too much. We're totally behind you, but just wait for the right moment. To which King replies, I mean, when has the right moment for justice ever come? So it's this dialogue back and forth. In fact, it's not back and forth. He never did get a response to his letter. But I want us to just think for a moment of the weight of that these upstanding citizens wrote this letter and he took it seriously. Imagine if this conversation happened today. Imagine the us and them that would likely happen. Imagine just how many of us, as we take to social media spewing stuff that isn't as nice as our highest, best selves or our way of Christ. This was in a moment when, I guess you'd say, gentlemen still behave like gentlemen. But I'd say really what King was behaving like was a follower of the way. There's nothing gentlemanly about it. He was so deeply committed to the way of Christ and peace that he would not, in his writing, be at all violent, just like he refused to be on the streets. So, Paul's calling for unity in the church, in his little church in Corinth. But the trouble with the call to unity is that kind of more often than not, it's been used as a call to silence. So we have to be wary of that call to unity, which I think is what reached King's cell that day. How often have we heard, just calm down, we just got to get along. And in that, people are silenced in legitimate claims for justice. And I wonder, too, what would King say today in his letter if he had the paper smuggled into him like he did in the jail, and he saw the story from LA that a cousin of one of the co-founders of Black Lives Matter was tasered to death? Would he hide behind, oh, that guy did, it was a hit and run, he did something bad, therefore we'll excuse being tasered to death? Or would he cut through the stories we tell and call us to look deeply at why it is that we keep hurting and oppressing and keeping others down in our society in such subtle ways for most of us?